The mysteries of synchronicity. This is another one of my favorite subjects, along with Hermeticism. Really, synchronicity is sort of the linchpin, one of the major catalysts for all of the transformational experiences that I've had, and some of the strangest, like Michael Levin, the morphologist, the Harvard biologist, was asked on a Theory of Everything a little while back what he thought it would look like is as far as like evidence that we're part of a larger intelligence, and he said synchronicity. And you know, most of the indications that I've had in my life that there is more to the universe than just random, deterministic gobbledygook have been synchronicities. And so in this stream, we're going to talk about why 1111 is the glyph of synchronicity. I will share some of my best stories in regards to this, and also I should explain that I had planned a completely different stream tonight, but something is going on with my sound card or drivers. I can't fix it, and I'm getting no monitor feed from my interface. So that's why we're not having the music. Hopefully we can do that on Saturday. I'm going to take the laptop to Cusco. Hopefully we can get it fixed, because I was really looking forward to that. I've been playing guitar all night, every night, really developing as a musician, really happy about that. So let's begin at the beginning. I think it was 2011. It might have been 2010. But I had already started to experience a lot of synchronicities. The earliest one I can remember, I think, pretty sure this is the first, like, major one. But I was talking to my roommate about synchronicity, and he said, "What is synchronicity?" And as soon as he asked me that, we were listening to Fish, the song The Wolfman's Brother. And the singer in Fish sings the lyrics, "The telephone was ringing, but it wouldn't be who it isn't if it wasn't who it was," or something. And the phone rings, like right on the word ringing. And I had just been asked, what is synchronicity? So that was the first instance that I can remember that was really like, too weird to write off. And over the next few years, that started to intensify and it just gained more and more momentum until it was almost the norm. Absurdly synchronistic occurrences were like more common than normal minutes, and there is definitely a correlation, and this is actually how Carl Jung, who coined the term synchronicity, described this happening, and I didn't know this. I had not read Jung yet. I had not studied synchronicity. I don't think I even knew that he coined the term. But, basically he was doing analysis on patients, and he noticed that when they started to individuate, or when the dialogue between the conscious and the subconscious mind increased, these meaningful coincidences would happen. And he said that he actually started to observe them sometimes. The patient would have a breakthrough, and right at that moment, some synchronicity would occur. I remember one story he told of a beetle. The woman was describing this beetle in a dream, and that very species of beetle flew in the window and landed between them as they were having this discussion. And so, point being, the correlation between the sort of internal, you could call it spiritual, but it could even be just psychological. I don't know that there's much of a difference. These developments are linked to intuition, which makes sense, because this intuition is coming from the subconscious. I don't think we can prove that, but I don't think anyone would dispute it either. And so if you are increasing the dialogue between the conscious and the subconscious, then your intuition is going to get better, because this information is bridging the gap. And in my experience, it's absolutely real, that once you become more conscious, really, is what's happening. Another way of talking about individuation, or saying that the subconscious and the conscious mind are increasing their dialogue, is to say that we're becoming less ruled by our subconscious. We are less automatic. We are less of an automaton. We're more conscious. We're more awake. In the same way that when you become conscious in a dream, it becomes a lucid dream, and you have control over it now. You can do practically anything you want. The same is true when we become awake in waking life. And the interesting thing about that is that it can become so intense, and it certainly did for me during this period, and still really to this day, it happens enough, but during this peak, and by the way, this is normal. Everyone seems to have a peak, and then, never again in your life do you reach quite that lofty place again. It seems to be the standard experience. But, it certainly seemed like I was capable of manifesting pretty much anything I wanted. And so the line between lucid dreaming and lucid waking becomes blurred to the extent that it was a little bit overwhelming, Just checking in with the chat real quick. So, while we're on the subject, I guess, of, the internal and the external world kind of bleshing due to this process of awakening, the glyph 1111 is a glyph of symmetry. Many years ago, thinking about this, trying to understand, because one of the things that's always bugged me about synchronicities is how do they physically manage to coagulate, I'm going to tell a story about a ruler that had two 11s on it in a second. And that's a good example of what I mean. This ruler presumably was made in a mold. It's not like they were printed by hand and someone could have misprinted the ruler. This thing physically had two 11s on it, and it was a plastic physical item, when the synchronicity occurred. And there are a lot of them that I've had that involve physical objects that just make no sense. And so, contemplating this, is it really maybe in the future, beyond this moment, the universe is a probability cloud, and when we arrive, that collapses it, and so these things are able to coagulate? Or is it that there is a symmetry in the underlying structure of the universe that manifests in these ways? And, it's a really hard thing to wrap your head around, because I happen to be of the opinion that although magic is real to an extent, parapsychological phenomena do occur, Nothing will happen that requires the laws of the universe to be suspended. That doesn't happen. And some of these experiences of synchronicity that I've experienced, that kind of are hard to reconcile with that, But, so, what it is, and this is something that I came to on my own before I read that Jung said this, that there are higher orders of symmetry, and they penetrate through all systems. And this is why when you bring your conscious mind more into balance, into homeostasis with the subconscious mind, the same relationship is expressed between your internal being and the external world somehow. That's the reality. How exactly that happens, I'm not really sure. Is it structural? Is it literally magic? It's a tough one. It's one of our greatest mysteries. And I think one of the amazing things about this moment that we live in is that as a response to 2,000 plus years of religious persecution and what do you call it? Oppression, genocide even. People got tired of it and they turned very materialistic. And that's not right either. The truth is in the middle. And so, we've been living with this ultra materialistic paradigm, which has caused a crisis of purpose and all sorts of unpleasantries, things that we would rather not see in the world. And I think that, Michael Levin, for example, I know he's the scientist I always reference, but I think history will show he's the most important person from that realm that is alive today. But hearing him talk about synchronicity and realizing that we are at this crossroads where we have some of the greatest scientific minds that have experienced these things and are acknowledging them for what they are. Levin apparently interpreted synchronicity exactly the same way that I did. So this is, in my opinion, awesome. And so anyways, that's the 1111. The first 11 is the internal world. The other 11 is the external world. And there are many qualities of the number 11 that are significant for a lot of different reasons. The one in the one can represent duality. The sun has 11-year cycles. We're actually getting to the peak of one such cycle. And a lot of us, going back to the Egyptians and the Incas and probably earlier, and modern thinkers like Rupert Sheldrake, I definitely have experienced this, and it is an opinion that I share with all those people, that the sun is our soul, in a sense. S-O-L, add you, individual soul. So we are a fragment of that, and our consciousness comes to us from the light. And so these 11-year cycles, when we reach the peak of them, our intuition is going to be the strongest. Our ability to manifest things is going to be at its strongest. Our capacity to receive information and, just anything you can think of related to consciousness, when these solar storms or these solar cycles peak, it has a tremendous effect on the human race. In fact, I suspect that it's not even entirely good. Everything in the universe is a double-edged sword to some extent. And I think the insanity that we're seeing on the earth right now with humans is definitely linked to this insane, intense solar activity. This is the most intense of these 11-year cycles in recorded history. And I think that's reflected here on Earth. So, the next major catalyst in this series of experiences for me, I had not heard of 1111 at this point. Did I mention that no, I didn't, sorry. The Kabbalistic Tree of Life also really has 11 Sephirot, not 10. The 11th is Da'at, which is knowledge, and it's either not drawn at all or very lightly or maybe with dots, because knowledge is relation. It's not an absolute thing, It's not real in the sense that the other Sephirot represent, objective energies. Da'at is interpretation and relation. So that's an interesting one, and I know and also it's the number of magical expansion. In Christianity, mystical Christianity, it represents transition. Also in the Kabbalistic numerological system, 10 is 1 again, but the 0 sort of amplifies its consciousness, would be a good way to put it, I guess. And then 11 is embarking on a new stage. So 10 is the culmination, and then 11 is magical expansion. I'm sure there are other important attributes that are escaping my mind, but that'll suffice, I think, for our purposes at the moment. So this ruler, right? We are... actually, I'll start back even a little bit. This is weird, too. Right before this happened, I was at work. I was working at a glass shop called Smart Enterprises. And I had always tried to ignore Aleister Crowley because I was, influenced by conspiracy theory people that I hadn't realized yet were basically right-wing Christians. And I just, I didn't want anything to do with him. And I got a Christmas card from my brother who I hadn't spoken to in 7 years. And he, just this random craziness. My boss comes back and she's like, "Hey, you got a card." And I open it up and it's Aleister Crowley with a big red nose and it says, "Do as thou wilt, as long as thou wilt have a Merry Christmas." So I'm like, what the hell? So I call my brother and we're, talking, and somehow we got on the subject of, I think I just mentioned, I'm reading book 4 by Aleister Crowley, and Aleister Crowley, I can't believe I just said Crowley. And he said, "Really? What page are you on?" And I was in my kitchen, so it was on the counter, and I opened it up, I don't know, 44 or something. He's like, "I'm on page 44 as well." So my brother and I, who had not spoken in 7 years, were not only reading the same book, but we were on the same page of this book. So that happened. I'm sure there was more, but then, just trying to give some context, these synchronicities are increasing in weirdness and frequency. And at my house, maybe a week later, my girlfriend was an artist, and she had a 23-inch ruler, and she's drawing something on the floor on a piece of paper with this ruler, and 11 by Tool comes on. And I guess that gave her the idea to ask me, what's up with the numerology of the number 11? And I didn't really know a ton about it, so I told her a little bit that I knew. And while I was talking, she kept like, "Oh, God damn it." And I kind of got annoyed because I'm like, "You keep asking me questions and you're making all this noise when I try to answer you. Like, I can't think, like what's going on down there?" And she's like, "I don't know what and then she just stops. She's like, "What the fuck?" And she holds up the ruler, and it not only has 2 11s printed on it, but one of the 11s is where the number 23 is supposed to be, which is a number associated with synchronicity. So, I had never heard anything about 1111. No clue about this. So that was super weird, but whatever, move on with our lives. And I think the next day, or maybe a couple of days later, I was at work again, and I'm tearing this awning down, I guess is what they're called, like an overhang on a roof, and there's plywood and there's insulation behind it, or some kind of stuffing, I don't know. There was some, insulation. And the same girl calls me, and she's like, "Oh my God, I just got a picture of 4 bears in a tree in the front yard, a mama and 3 cubs." And I was like, "That's cool, but I'm at work, and I gotta, I had her on speakerphone too, which is important because the other guys I was working with heard it." And so I get off the phone and I pull the insulation, and these 3 bear claws fall out from behind the insulation and land on the deck. And I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, those must be like parrot claws or talons or, something. There's no way that I just got off the phone from this bear call and that just happened. And my coworker saw it, and he came over and he's staring at him. And so I said it out loud, he heard the phone call, so he knew about the bears. And we were close enough that he knew that a lot of weird stuff had been happening, in my world. He'd seen a lot of it actually already. And we had just eaten bear stroganoff at his house the weekend before. So, and what the hell is that too, So I said, "They got to be talons or something." He goes, "No, dude." And he picks them up. He's like, "These are bear claws. You just ate bear at my house. I just shot one. These are bear claws." And so, go home, go to sleep, wake up the next day, roommate. I just got a message from this Native American guy, Golden Light Eagle, an email. He wants us to come to this convention. And I'm not going to get too much into all that because it's, I've made plenty of videos, told these stories before. But it turned out that his half of his message, part of it was about these star tribe beings that supposedly have been in contact with the human race for, aeons, that all sorts of indigenous groups have had contact with them. The Kofan, I recently discovered, actually drink ayahuasca and believe they're communicating with beings from Sirius, which is something I experienced myself before I found out about that. But at any rate, half of his message was about 1111. So this ruler thing happens. The bear claws, the bear is a symbol of awakening. Then we get this email somehow from this Sundance chief, Golden Light Eagle, wants to talk to us about 1111, basically. So all of that really put me in a position. I've always been a seeker and open to an extent. But in order to be really effective as a mystic, a real mystic, in the way that I am constituted, you have to have the same kind of critical thinking protocol and, skepticism, and you really have to create a balance. A lot of people, I feel, really sort of go off the deep end once they become open to spiritual concepts and whatnot. And they become too open, and as I always say, wind starts whistling through their ears, and, I didn't want that for myself. And it really took these synchronicities occurring at this level and with this conceptual continuity. That's another thing that just blows my mind about these experiences, is that it wasn't like there were just a lot of random coincidences occurring that had meaning. There was conceptual continuity. I call it the invisible thread. They were all connected and they were all going somewhere, And we should talk about that too, because people have a hard time knowing what to do with these synchronicities. A lot of people talk about interpreting them as signs and following them like breadcrumbs. And that can get you in a lot of trouble for a number of reasons. For one thing, your brain is processing like a gazillion bits of information a second. I don't know the number, but it's huge. And one of the arguments against synchronicity as having actual meaning is that, considering the sheer statistical density, the sheer amount of information that we're processing from second to second, it's more likely than not that apparently meaningful coincidences would occur. And even in aggregate, the most unlikely thing possible has already happened, our existence, and that could just be a coincidence. So, there's that risk of reading between the lines when there's nothing there and chasing what I call wish demons out into the abyss and getting lost, pursuing these things. I think it's much more wise to cultivate not only stillness as the fertile ground through which to view and interpret intuitive signals, but when you experience a lot of these synchronicities, I don't think you necessarily want to use them as guides, but you should be clued into the fact that your intuition should be listened to. It's not so much necessarily the external signs that have the message, but it is an indication that something in your internal being is connected, and that it's a time where there is an opportunity for you to, there are a lot of potential benefits that can occur, whether it's the pursuit of some kind of material gain or a level of insight into yourself, or, the expansion of creative capacities. These experiences are all indications that you need to look inwards and yield fruit. Let me check in with the chat. I haven't looked at it in a minute. And yeah. We're going to talk about symmetry in a second too. Let us fucking pray. Alrighty. I got a call from a bear. Oh, man. That's pretty funny. All right. Looks like Mr. Timothy Gallagher's got an awful lot to say, so... yeah, and I actually have a really good elucidation of that last bit, a good example of, how synchronicities can even be like a precursor, like I was saying, an indicator that in the general direction that you need to be going, right? So a couple of months ago, I was going through kind of a fallow period, I guess you would say, as a musician. And it's not really that I'd lost interest in it, but I have, and this is insanely hypocritical of me, or not hypocritical, but, true will without lust of results is in every way perfect. Like wisdom, when it comes to music or anything that you do, even if you want to be successful in the material sense, you have to do the thing for the doing of the thing. That's what makes you great. Not because of some goal, right? But personally, now that I don't have a band and I'm not, I wasn't as career oriented as I was when I was younger, I found it difficult to, maintain interest. And I think maybe there was also some disappointment. So I get a call from someone who is, it turns out, a Mason and an opera singer. And those details are important. This got wild, and he wants to come down and drink some medicine with me. So the night before he arrived, I was laying in bed with my partner, pillow talk, whatever, we're going to sleep, and she was talking about how, I see all these connections with things. This is like my big talent, to just see all this stuff. And she was saying, it's like you almost see everything, just like everything. You're like literally like the eye in the sky. So there was another detail there that is sort of a retroactive synchronicity, or it added a layer to this. I was actually, my alternative path in life was to make the eye in the sky for the NSA and the CIA, designing engineering satellites, the eye in the sky, right? And I went AWOL. I was actually forced into the military. I didn't want to be there. So rather than becoming a servant of the overlords and putting the eye in the sky, the other version of the eye in the sky I went after. Really trippy that. So anyways, the guy comes, amazing time, lots of incredible conversations that I wish I could share. And so we go out on like the third day into the mountains and drink San Pedro, and I get home and I'm still pretty altered, and it occurs to me that he had said that he had been working with Alan Parsons, for 8 years or something. And I knew I'd heard of Alan Parsons, but I couldn't quite recall any of his music, or, it's like my dad's generation. And so I look him up, and his big hit is Sirius, Eye in the Sky. And Sirius I have a huge connection with as well. So, if you guys follow me, then you get it so far. I have a history with Freemasonry and Hermeticism, and all that sort of stuff is a big part of my life. And then the medicine brings this Mason down here, and I have the Sirius fixation, and his producer's big hit was Sirius, Eye in the Sky. So then I start looking more, and it turns out that this guy produced the Beatles album that has Crowley in the top left corner. He produced Dark Side of the Moon, which has the triangle with the white light and the rainbow coming out of the other side, and the art company was called Hypnosis, like Gnosis. And I think there was a few more, but they were all bands and albums that had this sort of theme of like this hermetic, Masonic sort of thing, right? And there were other elements of this. It just kept layering, and I took it as almost like an answer from the universe, because I was thinking kind of like there's no point, and then this like crazy connection forms out of nowhere that's so improbable. And a few weeks later, I found myself really, really, really committing to playing guitar again. Like in the last like week or so, 2 weeks, I guess, I've been playing probably an irresponsible amount, and really studying, Beethoven and gypsy jazz and pop and disco and like everything I can get my hands on. And this like obsession. 2 days before, or 2 days after this marathon practicing started, Phil Lesh from the Grateful Dead died. And that is a massive, massive, that was a big deal for me for a lot of reasons. Not the least of which, though, was that it, again, propelled me to really push and study and get deeper and deeper into music again. And that's really the point, I mean, there is more to this. I'm not going to get into it at the moment. I'm not going to talk about things before they happen because it's just not. But let's just say it appears that responding to these synchronicities and taking the hint was a tremendously wise decision. Yeah. Something just happened like in the last couple of days that was ridiculous. Oh yeah. So check this out. This relates to this music thing, right? Because, I have had certain musical goals that I haven't been able to fulfill. I'm self-taught, and I think also just my self-doubt kind of made me think I wasn't understanding things that I did understand anyways, but neither here nor there. I found transcriptions of examples of the kind of things I needed to understand to fill in the blanks in my playing, right, on my son's birthday. So I go downstairs and I say, I feel like it's my birthday. I just found these transcriptions that are like the missing pieces of the things I need to understand. Now I can study them, and I have these tools now. 2 days later, I was looking at the transcription, and I noticed that one of them, it was from a live Fish concert, was from my birthday. 5/16, not 1979, but 5/16, 1995. So, this following this conceptual continuity, this breadcrumb of synchronicities, it's like you get these little God winks along the way, the fact that I made that comment and then discovered that it was literally a show from my birthday that had been transcribed, and the connection this all has to this string of synchronicities, and that's the crux of the apostrophe here, I guess. Check in with the chat again. Yeah, Django, man. I have been playing Django Reinhardt songs every single night. For those of you guys that don't know who Django was, man, he was an actual gypsy, I think in the 1930s and 40s. Huge influence on Jerry Garcia, I've noticed. I didn't know that before, but I started playing his stuff, and I'm like, hey, that's where Jerry got those chromatic trills, those curls, that he's always doing. But anyways, this guy burned his hand in a gypsy caravan, so he basically just had these two like mutilated lumps, and he would play like 200 beat per minute gypsy jazz with these two fingers. He's still regarded as one of the greatest jazz guitarists of all time. And it's true, even with all of my fingers, I have to slow them down in order to play them cleanly. So far, I'll get there. But okay, so what have we gone through here? We've talked about the higher orders of symmetry. We can go into that a little bit more, I guess. This is a difficult thing to explain. I'll do my best. But Jung described or explained, I don't know, I think I trailed off last time I tried to explain this, but he invoked higher orders of symmetry, which was the same explanation that I'd come up with. It blew my mind when I saw that he had said that there are higher orders of symmetry. And it's something like as above, so below, right? If you are shrunk so that you are so small relative to the earth, then you are, how do you say this? Oh yeah, it's to the nucleus of an atom, so the same ratio. There's the same distance between you and the nearest proton as there is from here to the moon, and then from you to the nearest electron as there is from you to the sun. More or less. The source for this is Friedrich Capra's The Tao of Physics. Friedrich Capra was a physicist, I think, in the 1970s, and he wrote a book showing the congruence between, certain types of mystical thinking and physics. And so, you can kind of reverse that logic, and it implies that if, we have smaller levels of intelligence like subatomic particles and then chemicals and on and on and on, the whole Michael-Levin light cone thing, then it stands to reason that stars and planets and whatnot are like atoms in the body of some larger intelligence. That is one of these higher order of symmetry type ideas. Also, when you have sex, right, male and female, and then we associate certain like lines, curves, all of these different allegorical things, they're not just mental constructs, these allegories. The genitals of both of the sexes and the way that they align with their general nature, for example, these are where symmetry of form and function are expressed. So symmetry is something that extends far beyond just physical form and expression, like a symmetrical face being beautiful. There are all these other orders of symmetry. And the alignment, I think, of your energy, your being, your thoughts, your behaviors with its own internal symmetry is going to align it with the other symmetries in the universe. When we say that all systems tend towards homeostasis, that's actually what we mean. I don't know if I conveyed that as well as I hope. These really abstract metaphysical concepts are difficult to articulate. This is one of the meanings of hermetically sealed, that a lot of this stuff is just like beyond our capacity to communicate. Although I think I managed. By the way, the hermetic stream was really well received, and we are definitely going to continue that probably Wednesday of next week. I think we'll do it every Wednesday, and that way we can have some regularity. So let me check in with the chat again and see what's up. By the way, you guys, we are accepting bookings for December because the morels didn't come in November. We were going to do the morel foraging and also plant medicine retreats, but the rains just arrived. So the morels should be here within a few days. It would have been kind of a disappointment last month. And plus I have all these surgeries that need to happen. So December, we're open for booking. Those, and then also Manu in May in the Amazon. We have a few slots open. By the way, hit the like button, share, subscribe, consider becoming a patron. We're demonetized. We get no support from YouTube. So we rely entirely on our wonderful audience. In fact, probably should thank some patrons here. Anybody new? Yessa, thank you for joining. And Chef Zro, thank you for your support. Looks like Johnny JB just came back too. So thank you for returning to the fold, my friend. Yeah, well, somebody mentioned music. That is actually one of the major sources of interesting synchronicities that I've had. In fact, the last retreat, speaking of retreats, I was telling one of the guests about this experience I'd had at this Fish concert where I was in the audience and they were just, everything was so perfect and it was so technical, and the lights were following it so perfectly. I was just thinking, there's no way humans could do this. Are they aliens or something? And from the stage, I hear, yes. And I'm like, what the hell? And then I was like, so what you're from the Pleiades or something and you're disguised in human bodies? I'm being sarcastic, thinking this stuff at the mushrooms, And they go, shh. And later I got a copy of the concert, recording, and it did happen. It is part of the song. It's just, that's where my head was at that moment. And so I was talking to him about this, and then we put on a Fish song, and he said, oh, you know what? I have a gift for you. And as soon as he said that, they started singing, "It's a little bundle of joy. It's a little bundle of joy," over and over again. So not only was it the same type of weird call and response with this music, it was the same band, And maybe that, I don't know what to say about that. It's very, very odd sort of experience. So, I feel like I'm trailing off here, and I know I haven't covered everything that I'd planned to discuss. Actually, maybe I have. I just want to add, I'm trying to choose my words and my battles. Walk with knowledge wisely. Solid advice from Crowbar. My expectation, based on the intensity of the solar activity and the fact that it is going to constantly increase, and I mean, I don't need to tell you guys about all the dynamics in the world right now that are just batshit crazy. Whenever one energy escalates, the opposite energy escalates in exact proportion, right? This is just the way the universe works. It's how did Maynard from Tool, a perfect union of contrary things. That's the name of his autobiography. A perfect union of contrary things. And, kind of counterintuitively, these symmetries that exist in the universe also are sometimes antinomies, They're equal and opposite. And so, in a sense, they're symmetries. And so this crossroads where we are encountering Hermes with this music and horns and weird coincidences and whatnot, at this crossroads with this level of intensity in every possible domain, it seems, the financial stuff, political stuff, spiritual stuff, everything, environmental, whatever, you name it. We have to remember to take advantage of the fact that the magician, who is all of us, every one of us, be your own shaman, has the inertia of the universe to assist him. And whichever side of the coin you choose is a matter of choice. So when we're thinking about these two opposing 11s, think of them now as dark and light. If you see a tremendous amount of, you experience a tremendous amount of fear, make that work to your advantage and remind yourself, well, there is an antinomy symmetry, and then spin that coin around and say, if there is this threat, then there is also an equal and opposite opportunity. This is the real secret of 1111 and symmetry. Because if you realize that even the negative things have an antinomy symmetry, symmetry is beauty. Therefore, even the ugliness is beautiful. Even the evil is good. Even the hate is love. It is all a matter of your personal choice, and also your discipline, willpower, your level of commitment to whatever work you're engaged in. You know, let's not oversimplify or sugarcoat things, but it's true. All of this lunacy is complemented by opportunity. This is the message of 1111. So, good night, guys. Hit the like button, share, subscribe. Consider becoming a patron. You can support us via the chats. I still have 4 surgeries and some other stuff that I have to address that is just way too much to even really think about at the moment. So your support is greatly appreciated. That's another one of these issues with symmetry. You know, there is symmetry in time. By the way, I guess I was about to close and I just remembered that I didn't mention this. This is another interesting one, and it's really important, valuable, because it can allow you to anticipate developments in your life. You know, I noticed a long time ago, maybe because I'm sort of in tune with the universal mind or something, but winters, when the transitions of the seasons happen, it's always bad for me. The winter, things go to hell, and in the spring, it all gets better again. It is always, every year of my life, always like that, including this one. Every year. And so, if you look at, you know, I make this example quite often, but it's a good one. If you look at the 1950s to the late 1960s and the racial tensions in the United States, the war brewing, the resurgence of interest in psychedelics, a Kennedy running for president, which is no longer the case, but it was, you know. Symmetries in time, different orders of symmetry, you know. And so what I just described is macro symmetry. This is why, if you want to take advantage of these things in the dialogue between the subconscious and the conscious mind, every day when you wake up, write down in your dream journal everything you dreamed. Keep track of the dialogue with the subconscious. Pay attention to the patterns in your life. Pay attention to the duration of them, the intensity of them, and then you can kind of predict and prepare. Of course, there is chaos in the universe, so you can always get blindsided. But this kind of thinking that I'm describing sorry, guys. Is what real magic is in the Hermetic sense, which we will talk about in the next stream. Unless I can get my interface fixed, then we'll have a jam. So thank you so much for spending this time with me, and I will see you on the other side.